Guiding Abundance. I'm Arla Williams. You see Ahoyo on the screen. My computer deemed to call me woman in Choctaw, so I'm good with that. And Sam Chandler, who is busy at the moment getting us up and going. And we have a very, very fun guest tonight. We have Ginger Lockwood, a very good friend and so much fun in the woods. So welcome, Ginger. We are so excited for tonight to see what comes forth. And Ginger, if you will introduce yourself and tell us something about yourself, we would appreciate that.
Okay. Let's see. I first learned about the fairies when I was a kid, and I had kind of forgotten to put it aside, but I made a drawing of it as a child, and then they came back in my life again, and I found the drawing, which confirmed what I thought I remembered. So that's how I got started in with the fairies. And I actually met you and Sam through a camp out that I was invited to, and a bunch of others that are now family to me. And I found out about some really neat Bigfoot places. And let's see, I'm from Florida and moved to Georgia. I live in Georgia now. And I don't know. What else do you want to know?
I guess whatever you want to tell us. You have a friendship with the big guys. They're in Georgia, along with the fairies and other beings, which, you know, a lot of people kind of scoff at, but, you know, we know for certain that they exist. And people have known that forever, documented it, talked about it, but man seems to poo-poo it, but it's getting better. And because of people like you who do speak out, that helps a lot. So tell us some about, excuse me, your association with the big guys.
Okay, well, the big guys, what started it all was them showing up in my yard one night. I had experiences with them when I was younger too, but I didn't realize it was the Bigfoot. I thought it was bears that walked upright to me. I didn't know there was such a thing as Bigfoot, but later I'd forgotten about them, and I got where I really didn't even believe in them. And actually, I didn't know the word Bigfoot, but Bigfoot shows started coming on TV, and my husband would tell me about them. And then one night we heard this really loud howling, or I heard it in my backyard, and it was around 2:30 a.m. and Paul was sleeping. In fact, this week is the anniversary of that. It's been 7 years since that happened. And I saw, because it came up on my Facebook memories, and it showed my broken leg, and I broke my leg 3 days before they showed up, and I couldn't walk, and I was up late wondering how I was going to take care of myself the next day. And I hear this really loud howling in the backyard, and I live in the middle of a subdivision. Now, we do have a small strip of woods in everybody's backyard though, but it was like, oh, like that. And it was going over and over again, and it was so loud, way louder than that. And then one down the street started answering it back, and it was doing the exact same howl. And so I could tell those two were communicating, and I didn't know what was going on, but I sat out there for about 15 minutes. And at first I clunked around making a lot of noise, trying to scare whatever it was away from my yard, because my husband was sleeping, and I was afraid it was going to wake him up, and he had to go to work the next morning. And it didn't care at all that I was clunking around. I turned on the porch light, everything. It just kept howling. And, I stayed up for about all night long, because my husband always wanted to have a Bigfoot experience, and I felt like it was, but I was trying to deny it in my head. So I stayed up all night looking up every sound I could think of, an animal, wildcat, out, bears, everything, frogs, trying to find that sound, and nothing came close. So then I finally went on a Bigfoot site, and I wasn't on Bigfoot pages then or nothing. So I just looked one up and I found a thing of audio howls, and I found the exact howl, and it was called the Ohio howl. And so I knew then it had to be a Bigfoot. And Paul got up and I said, Paul, we had a Bigfoot in our yard last night. And I was wondering why it didn't wake up all the neighbors, because it was so loud. And we wanted them to come back after that, and they did. And they just kept coming back and visiting many nights for a couple years. And I was just amazed by them, and I wanted to get to know them. I wanted to know what they are, what they were like. I wanted to be friends with them. And I was trying my best at trying to get closer to them and closer to them. I wasn't able to walk at first and go down my stairs to get out into my yard because of my broken leg. So Paul told me he had heard on the shows that they like apples, and he went and got some apples, and I went to the top of my deck with crutches and just threw apples out in the yard. One night though, I threw an apple out, and I don't know if I came close to hitting one or just scared one or what, but it was like grumbling really loud at me. And then I was so afraid that I made them mad, because it sounded like 2 or 3 of them jumped out of the trees and bushes and took off. And Paul was like, I think you got them mad. And I was so worried, and I kept apologizing night after night, just looking into my woods, saying, please come back. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hit you with an apple or anything. And they did. After 3 days, they came back. And it just went on. And then finally I got where I could go down the stairs. So one night, right after it had turned dark, 2 big trails had formed in our yard. Before then, it was right after they came. It was like night after night, we were hearing the trees be yanked up and trees falling down in the yard, like crash. And I don't know what the neighbors were thinking, but because it was really loud. And then 2 big trails were formed from that. I guess they were forming trails. So I went down the one to the right, and I almost ran into 2 Bigfoot. I was looking down at the ground and watching where I was going, because I wasn't real confident in my walking yet. It was approximately a month from now that I had the first sighting, and there were 2 Bigfoot standing in front of me. Now it had just turned dark, so the only reason I could see them was all the lights from the neighborhood. I could see their silhouette, and the eyeshine was flaring out. And I didn't even know they could make eyeshine, because I had never watched a Bigfoot show or read a book. And it was beautiful, beautiful fluorescent green. And it was round, and it wasn't the shape of eyes. It was standing out further than that. And it was just gorgeous. And I was just mesmerized by the beauty. And the strange thing was, I didn't have any fear. I kept thinking about that. Why did I not have fear standing in front of something I've never seen before? And there wasn't any. I had a bag of peanuts in my hand, of raw unsalted peanuts, a big bag, because I was going to gift the biggies as I was walking down the trail and lay some peanuts out. And so I stood there just in awe of their eyes for a while. And one was directly standing behind another one, like it was being protective up against it. And it was about a head taller than the one in front of me. And the one in front of me was about my height, and I'm 5'2". But I said, do you want some peanuts? And I put my hand down in the bag of peanuts and held out my hand with peanuts on them. And they just kept looking at me with those beautiful green eyes, and they didn't move an inch. So I said, okay, well, I'll just sit the peanuts down on the ground, and I'm going to turn around. And so I did that. And I turned my back to him and went down the trail and got out of my little wooded area. And I was like, oh my gosh, I just ran into 2 Bigfoot. And, got up in the house to tell my husband, Paul, there's Bigfoot in the yard. But there wasn't any fear. And I remember asking Tom Cantrell about that years later. Why did I not feel any fear? And, because I hear so many encounters where people are scared right when they walk up. But, I didn't have any scary thoughts or feelings, because I had never heard anything like that before. I had never listened to a Bigfoot show or watched a Bigfoot book. So I had no reason to feel that way. And so I think that's part of it. And then I wonder sometimes too, if I had my bloodline, if it's in my ancestry, people had relationships, or maybe past lives. Maybe I had a relationship, because it was just weird that I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared when I was young, when they used to walk up either.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, you weren't taught fear, for
No.
one thing, and people who go on the internet, on YouTube, or read books that are all scary, that's going to be their perception if they have an encounter. You didn't have all of that in your mind to begin with, and you're a very open person anyway. So, you did something that was natural.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did go through a period of time, just to be completely honest, where I did get scared, and I think they were testing me. But besides that, I haven't had those kind of experience really. When I get in front of a Bigfoot and see one, the fear is not there normally. So I just hear so many scary stories. I wanted to let people know you're not always scared when you get in front of a Bigfoot. Maybe if you don't listen to scary stories, that will help.
Yeah, I agree, and even for people maybe that don't, it depends on where their mind's at too. If they already have fear of things they don't understand, and for you, there was a small one there, your size.
Yeah.
And, that you related to that. And you said the other one was behind, pressed up against them, like they were in a protection mode. So, why would you be afraid of something that was your size, and that's what you felt? You felt they were being protected. So then, there was that dual thing going on. I mean, they're watching you and you're watching them, and nobody's showing any fear.
Yeah. And I was obviously not a threat. I mean, I was wounded and I just had a bag of peanuts in my hand.
Wounded woman come bearing peanuts. Yeah, she's going to be my friend. And they did become your friends.
They did. They became family to me. They're very close to family to me now. Consider them family. Fairies too.
Yeah. And anyone that's been near you knows what kind of energy you put out. So you don't put out an energy that would make the Sasquatch people uncomfortable, or maybe a little bit, nervous themselves. So they're going to put out love to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want that. I do believe that you get sometimes what you put out. And so I am careful to try to control my energy in the dark, to not let it get fear out of control and stuff like that. I do fight it.
Yeah. My grandmother used to say, there's nothing in the dark that's not there in the light. You just can't see it.
Right.
And so then your imagination takes over, and that's what gets you into trouble.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. We have to watch our imagination when we're walking in the dark in the woods, and we have to keep ourselves grounded and stable. And it's something I have to practice every time I go in the woods at night.
Yeah. You remember the time I scared you on the trail?
Yes. Like I said, there has been some experiences. I had went through a scary experience once with Paul, and I was spooked after that for a while, and I made myself go back in the woods to get over it. So 3 weeks later I went back, and that night Sam and Keith had met up with Paul and I in the woods, and Sam came walking down the trail with a black bulky jacket on. And it was dark. None of us were using flashlights. And so all I could see was this black silhouette coming right at me. Sam was peeking behind a tree and everything. And I
Uh,
was spooked and trying to get over it. So it was like,
oh, Sam.
I wasn't trying to scare.
Sam, he didn't realize I was so spooked. He could tell later on. He goes, "You really are spooked, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes."
Yeah, and that's hard to come back out of too.
Uh-huh.
You know, I've been in the woods with, oh gosh, I can't even count the number of people, very large men to very small women. And those that have gotten spooked, sometimes you just can't help them get past that and get grounded again. And so the best thing at that point to do is just take yourself out of the situation that you're in and give yourself time to come back and get yourself grounded. Because I've just seen so many people that I couldn't even help them, you know, to talk it out and to get through it. And you know, some of the funniest ones, and it's not funny, it wasn't funny to them, but very large, big men who were big macho men, and just they would come up close to us and they would freak smooth out. And it, you know, it's like, okay, let's talk this out. What's going on here? Have they actually threatened us? Have they come to get us? What's going on here? And, you know, you start this process of talking this out and trying to figure it out. And I remember being in the woods with a friend of mine. He's like 6'6", and he was standing up against a tree, and these young ones had come up really close to us, and he was posturing. He was trying to get taller, and he was stretching up, trying to make himself taller, and lean nonchalantly up against the tree. And I just said to him, "How's that working for you?" He said, "It's not." And so he finally did get calmed down. And, you know, it was okay. But I mean, you know, you can get scared at the drop of a hat with things that are happening. And nobody should beat themselves up because they get scared. They just need to try to talk it through. And if they can't, then they just need to remove themselves from that space till another time.
And I want to say also, you can ask the Bigfoot to help you with that and not do things too, because that happened to me one time in the yard. I had all good experiences. It was nothing but roses and flowers for like the first 7 months, and then they started the bluff charging at me. And of course I didn't know the word bluff charge either, because like I said, I wasn't reading anything about Bigfoot. I had went online, I think once after 3 months, to look up something, and I saw a scary story right away, and I thought, I can't read this. And so that made me stay off again. And because I was sitting in our backyard alone with the Bigfoot at night. So, and you know, I couldn't go there. I couldn't let my mind go there. And I didn't know what they were doing was actually called bluff charging. They stopped right before they got to me. And at first I thought they were just happy to see me. I really did. And I was like, oh, you're happy to see me. You come running up when I come outside. They're probably like, yeah, this isn't working. And then after a couple of weeks, I was tired one night and it scared me, and fear got in finally. And I had the hardest time, and so every night I was trying to fight it, you know, the fear when they came running up again, because they started doing it every single night at me. And every single night. I mean, I wouldn't have one break. And I was having such a hard time. And I'd be like, guys, you got to stop. I'm trying to handle this, but some nights I'm just too tired and it's scaring me. And I got where I was afraid to come outside of my house anymore at night. And I was sitting in my room one night and I thought, this is not fair. So since they didn't listen to me saying it nicely, I came out and I pointed to my woods and I start shaking my finger and I said it sternly. And I said, you have got to stop. And that's not the exact words I used, but it was like, oh, I think I said, I know that that you guys were probably here long before I was, even though I didn't know anything about them. I was already picking that up. And and I said, and this land may have been yours, but I bought the property now, so we have got to share it. And and they stopped. And in fact, one night, not soon after that, got real quiet in my woods after that. They weren't doing anything. And then about a week after, I heard one sounded like a juvenile come walking down the trail, because you can hear the difference in the footsteps and the big ones and the small ones are a lot louder or not loud. And it comes walking up to right in front of my porch again. And I hear another one in the lot next to us in the back. It sounded like the mother yell out for it. And as soon as I heard that, I heard another one go running down the trail right up to the one in front of me. And they stood there for a second and then they went running back. It's like somebody came and got it, the one in front of me, and told them to go back. And it's like, you guys don't have to go back. I just don't want you charging me. But and so, so it did work just to have a talk with them about it. And that never happened to me ever again.
That's one of the things that I always tell people when they go out is, if you get in that position where you're feeling a little afraid, start talking. Tell them who you are. Tell them why you're there. And, be like you were meeting someone that you wanted to know, and talk in that manner. If that doesn't help you, then, you reassess what's going on and you have the choice to leave, if you can't get through that. But when we talk to them, it creates a connection, even though we may not hear anything back from them. We create a connection that says, okay, you've got to be a sentient being, because for me to be talking to you, you have to understand what I'm saying. And that helps a lot, to talk to them, and I know with the dog man, Rouse, one that I've seen quite a bit, sometimes I just have to ask him to, you need to back up. Your energy is a little much. And so that's the one thing, we need to do, like you did. You explained, to them. So, and that's a simple thing for people to do.
Yeah. Well, I noticed early on they could absolutely understand everyone I said. And I also noticed they could understand it in my mind, that I didn't have to say it out loud.
Yep.
Now, I did talk to them lots of times out loud. And when I'm on trails, not at my house, I need to remember to talk in my head, because it's embarrassing when somebody walks up. But I could tell that first night when the Bigfoot were here and they were howling, that it seemed like they could tell what was in my mind, because I got an iPad to go out and record it. And to record the howling, as soon as I hit record, the howling completely stopped. Even the one down the street, there was no way it could see me.
Yeah, and they know.
So
too, sometimes, in groups of people, maybe 2 or 3 will hear the exact same thing, but nobody else will.
Yeah.
So, you just have to say, well, wow, they, some will hear and some won't. And that's just the truth of how that works.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes it can be used to pull my hair out because sometimes I hear and see a lot of things my husband didn't get to. And he got to see and hear things too though. But I want him to see and hear more. And I used to beg the biggies, oh please do this out. Because when I would go outside, they'd all running around my backyard and somebody else would step out and they'd stop, be pitch quiet. And I'm like, really? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'm very, very familiar with that. Yep.
But it's meant for the person it's meant for at that time, and everybody has their time, So.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a lot camping with my family. Like I'll be out with like my wife and my kids, and I'll wake up in the middle of the night and there's like a romper room going on in the camp. Stuff's being like tossed, or there's just a bunch of rambunctiousness, and they're sleeping through all of it. And I look over at them, I'm like, how can you sleep through this? Yeah.
That reminds me, one time there was one in my yard and it was the middle of the day. Now I couldn't see it, but I could hear it as plain as day. And it was right up against the porch, and my porch is right up against my wood line. So when the biggies are right up against the edge of the woods, that's right up against my porch. And I had two friends sitting on my porch talking to me, and one of my friends was aware of it because every time she came over during the day, I would start getting rocks and things hitting the side of my house, and they wouldn't stop until the both of us would come outside and talk on the porch. And they just wanted to see us, I guess. And I never thought of the rock throwing as a bad thing, but so then one time I was sitting on the porch with her and another girl. We went out there so they wouldn't start throwing rocks while I had company. And, and we could hear it in the woods right in front of us making a ton of noise. Now she could see spirits real easily, and she could see the spirit of it too, but I couldn't. I could just tell it was there by the noise. And we kept looking at each other, and we were looking at my friend, and you could tell she was totally oblivious to it. She didn't hear it, see it, or anything. And then that one friend left, and my other friend turned to me and said, could you see it? And I said, no, I just know it's there. And she goes, wow. And so yeah, they can be anywhere during the day.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so after you started having your or after you realized what was happening in your yard, did you start going out for a while, or did you not go out until
I didn't go out till I met you guys. Actually, I met Gail first.
Okay.
And what happened is Paul and I went to the Bigfoot Museum that opened up here in Georgia. And we had been keeping it secret because me and him got attached to the biggies real quick, real early on. And so we were very protective over them, like lots of people get. And we went to the museum. We thought, well, this is some people we can talk to about it. And we started showing them pictures of the structures that were appearing in our yard. That's how I learned about structures, straight from the biggies. And so we were showing them the pictures and all, and telling them about things that I saw happen and things that Paul saw happen. And they were going to make a call to Arla first, and I don't know what happened. Then they called Gail. And Gail put me in the group with you guys, and then I got invited to a camp out with you guys, and that was my first times going outside of my yard looking for Bigfoot.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That's
and
cool.
then I had the first night. I was like, guys, you guys aren't kidding. I didn't know what to expect, and I was a little scared because I only knew my biggies, and so I didn't know what to expect. Whoops, my phone dropped. Okay, there I am. And this fairy flew away for a minute, but the first night, Paul and I went down this trail, and it wasn't dark yet. And as soon as we got off, it was dark, and nothing happened on the trail. But we got on the road to get to our car, and then we saw these bright white lights, and they were waving back and forth and back and forth, and they were on the road. And Paul said, "Is that Boy Scouts with flashlights?" And I kept looking. I thought, well, that looks weird. Why would they do that? And then all of a sudden, they just completely disappeared, like they turned all the flashlights off. And all of a sudden we could tell there were two Bigfoot standing in front of us. And one was on the ground and it had blue eyeshine that was gorgeous. And it quickly turned to green, the green that I'd seen in my yard. And then there was one next to it standing up and it had white eyeshine. And it looked about the same height that's the one I saw in my yard. And I was kind of wondering if one of them was visiting and followed me there. So that was definitely exciting. That was my first experience outside of my yard, except when I was a kid.
You know, that I think the one thing that makes me the happiest that those gatherings even started was seeing what the product is as far as the quality of people who continued to stay in touch with each other and have some really awesome experiences in life. And so, you know, for me, thinking, oh, wow, I went to Georgia, I did a gathering, and oh my gosh, look at all this wonderful family now that's come together. And you know, so that just makes me really happy that happened.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm so grateful all the time because you guys are family to me now. I mean, as close family as you could possibly be. So, you know, the Biggies gave me a family. Not only just the Biggies are my family now, but I have you guys too.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I appreciate it. They've given me lots of blessings that I wouldn't have if they hadn't came into my life.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And the biggest journey is once you get to know them, you start learning about yourself, like Arla always says.
That's what you're going to learn about. You think you're in it to learn about them, and you do learn about them. But if you're open, you're going to learn a lot more about yourself than you ever will them. And that's really a good thing. If you're up for doing it, and you don't have to do it, but if you're up to it, it's an awesome thing.
Well, I would just say stay open-minded, like you say, and try not to let fear get in, and watch the scary stories you see online, like the rock throwing. We had one that threw a stone out on the porch. Every night I stepped out for a while, and every night I would step out, it would go ping right on the porch, and I loved it. I thought it was a Biggie saying hi to me every night. So I was probably a really hard person for them to scare. They wanted to play jokes on me like that. Oh, hey, Biggie! But
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is they wouldn't have a problem hitting you and hitting you hard, but they didn't.
right.
They didn't, you know,
Well, right.
And that's a big thing.
Exactly. I used to sit in the woods with them alone so many nights, and they were my therapist. I would sit out there every night and tell them every thought on my mind for that day and just dump it all out. And it would just be pitch dark in the woods. And I remember Paul would come outside and he'd go, "Hey, honey, are you out there?" And it was great because anytime I had a problem, I would think of a new way to think about it. And it was like immediate. And I felt like it was the Biggies giving me the thoughts because I never had that thought about it before. Never. I'm going to be some problem in my life. And this person doing this to me or whatever. And all of a sudden they turn it around and I'd see a whole different view. And it'd always be something loving and kind and good. And, you know, but it's something I completely never thought about. And so I just kept going out there and doing that night after night. And I felt like it was keeping me healthy emotionally and mentally.
It was. It was. They're the best therapist I've ever found. I've heard too many people talk about this, even past my own experiences with them. They'll tell you that very same thing. And, you know, and Sam too, he's, you know, felt that that wonderful feeling that, you know, that they can touch us with if we're willing to open up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
One night I was out there for my counseling. I was sitting on a trail and I was facing the house, and Paul flipped on the porch light and came out and said, "Hey honey, you out there?" You know, as usual. When he did, a Bigfoot walked right in front of me on the trail. And but the really unusual thing was it was see-through, and I could see my husband in the house through the Bigfoot. And you know, it had the long arms and the long legs and long fingers, and you know, it was totally a Bigfoot, but it almost looked like a walking tree because they're real skinny here, and it was sideways except for the arms and legs and all. But I knew it was the Bigfoot, but I didn't know they could go see-through. I had no idea they could cloak and all that. So I thought I was going crazy. And I turned my head around so I couldn't see it anymore. And I closed my eyes just to see if I could, you know, go away. And then I turned back and looked back and I could still see it. And it was still see-through. But this time I couldn't see the whole body anymore because it had walked over to two parallel trees and it had started merging into them, and real slowly. And when I looked back, there was maybe about 2 inches of see-through body sticking out. And then I could see its arms still too, though. But and then it was about 1 inch, and then it just poof, disappeared. And I knew that Bigfoot had done something like some kind of portal thing and went through a portal and disappeared, moved into the energy or another dimension. My daddy was psychic, so I was a little open to things already before the Bigs came here, to those kind of things. And I think that kind of helped me with some of it.
Yeah,
Because
it definitely helped you because you know, you are, if you're not brought up in fear of things, then it's not a natural thing to feel unless we've been taught it by witnessing it or being told, or you know, whatever. We don't come into this life with fear, so it has to be learned.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because
yeah, I didn't have any fear then either. And I felt like it was their psychic abilities, because then it was running through my brain. How did you do that? And I remember I kept talking to them about that. And we were saying, you got psychic abilities you use, don't you? It's like, I want to learn how to do that.
Yeah, they knew. That's why they were doing it for you. Because they knew you
It
were
woke
open to
me
it.
up. It woke me up. It made me start thinking about my own again and being interested in my own abilities, you know, and start working with them because they reminded me of them. It's like they reminded me of me.
Yeah, that's it. That's what my grandmother said. They're another us.
Yeah.
And, you know, I always liked that statement. They're another us.
Yeah, I saw one reflecting the image of me one night. I thought, how is that tree making a reflection of me? I kept staring at it. And so I put one arm up in the air, and my reflection put one arm up in the air. So then I put one arm out, and my reflection put one arm out. And I kept doing that. So then I just started going crazy, moving them all over the place, and my reflection stopped. And I thought, and then it stopped looking like my reflection and turned into a Bigfoot.
The night that I spooked you on the trail, was that the night that we saw the gigantic eyeshine? It wasn't that night?
No. The night we saw that gigantic eyeshine had to be before that, because I wasn't nervous at all that night, and I was spooked for a while after the other night.
You were nervous after you were out with Paul, right? You and Paul went out one night.
Yeah, Paul and I had a night that was weird. And
yeah.
But no, there was one night where like the four of us sat on that trail, and he said his teacher was here. And so we all turned and looked, and we saw that green eye shine.
Mhm.
And then just something inside me felt like there was more. So I got up and walked down the trail. And then I saw that one with a real big eye shine. And I came back and told you guys, you got to see this.
Mhm.
And you came up, Sam,
Mhm.
and it was huge. It's the biggest I've seen to this day. I was telling you about it when we were in Washington, Arla. It was
Yeah.
real big. It was pulsating in and out, going in and out. It was humongous. And Sam walks up and he goes, wow. And we were seeing it turn its head and turn and look at Keith and Paul. And when it did, you could see its other eye. And the other eye wasn't flared out. So I learned the biggies don't always shine out both eyes. We could see the other eye, but it was almond shaped and it was all bright white light.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was like a line of energy going between the huge flared out one and the small
Yes.
one.
Yep. Yes. There, I can't remember where I was, but it was quite a while after it got dark, and we were watching some young ones, and they were being very bold with their eye shine, and they came up towards us, and as they did, the eyes then connected. So, or the light connected, from one eye to the other. And I always said it made me think of Geordie LaForge on Star Trek, and that little thing he wore, and you'd see lights and stuff go across. It was like it merged, the two eyes merged and made a bar of light across there.
That's exactly what it looked like. Yeah.
Yeah. The place where we're talking about now, I have never in all my life seen as much eye shine as I have seen in that area. And I've been all over, but that particular area, I know we had the one gathering and we had gone up a trail, and we were all standing there, and it was like for 15 minutes, it was like eye shine. Some would be on and then they would take it off. And then there was one very large one standing kind of like over all of them. But that just always amazed me that there was so much eye shine.
Sometimes they use eye shine more in other areas than others.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've always thought that, like, the area that we're talking about now, and Ginger, you and I have discussed this before. It almost feels like it's like a school where it's like a safe zone where they can do these things for us, and we can interact with them, and it's like a mutual safe place. Because like almost every night you go there, you're like, eye shine. Oh, there they are. They're over here. You can see their eyes.
Yes. Yes. And I know one night we were there, and Gail was with us at that one gathering, and there were twins, and they came up very close to us. And it seems like there were always a lot of juveniles and younger ones there. So that leads me to believe what you were saying, Sam, that, it was a safe place for them. And they knew who, they could do that with and who they couldn't. So that, that plays into that too.
Yeah, because the night Ginger was referring to with the really bright shine, me, Paul, and Keith were sitting in the trail, and the bigs came like over a hill and kind of down, and so me, Paul, and Keith were like looking up, and you could see like green eyes up there in the trees, and we were like watching them, and Ginger walked down the trail a little bit, and she's like, "Oh my God, you guys have to see this eye shine," and we're like, "Yeah, Ginger, we see it. It's right here." Come over. And she's like, no, come over here. And I couldn't see what she was seeing from my angle, so I had to go walk over and look in her line of sight. And I was like, whoa.
It was huge. I've never seen that big eye shine in my life. It was amazing. And we stood there for a while. Paul came up too, and he said the same thing Sam said. He said, wow. And we stood there and watched it. And I remember, oh, my thing's get excited. And I remember Paul was looking at it too, and it started to go away. And then Sam said, oh no, it's going away. And he was all shocked. And so I whispered under my breath, I said, oh, please don't go, because, you know, Sam was sad. And it turned around and it whipped around. And you could see, you know, it lightened up the woods with its bright eye shine as it whipped around. And then it started flashing it out again. I mean, that was just so amazing. And I don't even know how it heard me. Sam goes, it heard you, because it was kind of under my breath, wasn't it, Sam?
Yeah. Yeah, she said it very quietly.
Which shows again, they were knowing my thoughts, because, or else they've extra good hearing that time. But you know, they've showed me over and over again, they know my thoughts. And I know so many people feel like they're not connected sometimes, and I think they are. I think sometimes we just don't quiet our thoughts enough to listen.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, they're the simple fact of hearing them is being open and listening. Your approach has been you're already talking to them when you don't know them, but that's your nature to do that, you know, to talk to somebody and to present yourself in the way that we're seeing tonight. You're very much a young spirit. I've always said you're like a fairy. You're right there. And, you know, that just makes the conversation, you know, so much easier. And they so love for us to communicate with them, you know, so yeah, why not?
Yeah,
definitely. I used to sing to him and dance for him, and I would make up songs all the time, and it was a way of me not being afraid too.
Yes.
You know, on nights where
yes,
right.
Yep, like you said, everything that you see in the dark is there in the day also, but at night you don't know what all the sounds are, and so there's that spooky mysteriousness going on, you know.
Yeah, and then there's those nights where when we would walk down the trail, because we didn't use flashlights,
right?
And then there wouldn't be any eye shine or anything, and then you'd hear one, you know, just walk right up to you, and you'd be like, but you couldn't see because it was pitch black, and you'd be like, hi, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Ginger, do you remember the time
The loud pop?
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah,
You knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah. We were walking down the trail that night, yes.
Yeah.
And we weren't using our flashlights as normal. And all of a sudden, I was just standing there resting, looking at the woods. And right in front of me, there's this huge, loud pop. I mean, it was loud. I call it more of a bang, but I guess it was a pop. It was really loud. And I jumped a mile high. Sam turned around and about cracked up laughing because he saw me jump a mile high. And
Yeah, because we had just seen two sets of eyes looking at us from behind a tree. There was some blue eyes and some green eyes, and we were talking to them. And when we were talking to him, I looked over and I saw like some red eyes up on top of the ridge, and I got the feeling that was like a younger one, and it was like a little nervous or something.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I remember. And remember also, I remember that young juvenile that was sitting there with eyeshine, and I was watching it and talking it to him, and you and Paul were too. And then you turned to the right, and you thought you might seen some dogman eyes. I remember, and you were looking at these little red lights that were in the air.
Yeah, they were. Well, it was up the hill on top of the ridge, and I was like,
Okay.
and they were red, and I was like, that's weird. There's red lights up there, or there's red eyes up there. And so, anyways, we couldn't get the ones with the blue eyes and the green eyes to come. We were like, come on, you know, like let's like try to meet a little closer. Like we wanted to get closer, and they wouldn't. And so we were like, all right, well, we're gonna walk down the trail. If you guys want to walk with us, you're more than welcome. And so we're just walking, and then all of a sudden, it was like right behind me and right in front of Ginger, there was just like this loud pop, I mean, it was loud.
Yeah.
And I remember Ginger goes, well, it blew my hair back. And
It did.
and we were like,
It
and
did.
we stood there like, what was that? Because it wasn't anything thrown at us, I don't think. But anyways, what did it feel like to you, Ginger?
I remember that hair being blown back now that you said that. What I remember the most is the big flash of light.
Okay.
I don't think you had seen that. When the pop happened, there was a huge flash of light right in front of me.
Okay. Because it was behind me. I didn't see it because it happened right behind me.
Right. But you were right in front of me and you turned around and you saw me, I think, jump or something. Because you heard the pop and it turned you around. You would catch me in my most embarrassing moment. And
well, it was dark. At least it was dark.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But what do you think that pop was, Sam?
I don't know, because the funny thing was, about a week or two later, I was sitting in my living room, and Kristen was in the bathroom getting ready for bed, and I was just sitting on the couch. And over in the corner of the living room was that same exact noise. And it was like, pop. And I just sat there and I looked over in the area and I smiled, and Kristen was in the bathroom and she said, what was that? And I was like, I don't know.
Well, I felt like it was something moving from another dimension. And maybe it was making a popping noise when the dimension opened or something and closed. I don't know.
I'm not really sure what it was, because it was.
I don't know. I'm just guessing.
I'm guessing too. Yeah, because it was just funny. But so many things happened at my house then too. So like pretty much between my house and that place, it was just like something was always going on. And sometimes those things would happen at our house. And yeah, but I don't know. Arla might have some insight, but I don't know if she'll share it.
What do you think the popping noise was?
It could be several things, but because of how it affected you, it was movement of energy. Anytime you have an extreme amount of energy, it can be used to make a noise with. Now, they do, a lot of people talk about them tree knocking and stuff, but they literally can use their energy to make all kinds of sounds. I mean, we can too. We're just trying to remember how to do that, but it very definitely sounds like it's possibly done energetically, whether you're talking about raising vibrations,
Yeah.
not necessarily going from one dimension to another, but with them and deciding what they're doing, it could be residual energy. I mean, you're building up a lot of energy when you're out there with
Yes,
them.
definitely.
And our energies have to be synced to truly begin to totally connect with them. That Sam's talked a lot about that love, that bliss, that type of feeling that you really can never explain until you have it, is when our energies are synced totally, and that connection is made. For what I think it was some kind of energetic response to something, whether it was used to get your attention or to clear something out.
Right.
So not being there, it's kind of hard to say exactly what it was. What was going on, Sam, when you had it in your house?
Nothing. Nothing. I was just sitting on my couch. I wasn't even watching TV or anything. I was just sitting there. I think I was getting ready to go to bed.
Okay, so you were in a space of coming down. not down in a negative sense, but down into a space to ready yourself to go to bed. You weren't being influenced by any other sounds or any other thing going on. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got it. Was just, yeah, because Kristen was getting ready for bed in the bathroom. So she was like washing her face and stuff. And I was just kind of sitting there zoned out probably because that's what I do a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So it got your attention.
Oh, yeah.
Kristen got to hear it too.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool. So Ginger, when you started, did you start exploring other places after the campouts?
Yeah. Well, first I started going back to where we had camp out a lot. And then you told me about your other place, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
And the first night Paul and I went there, the first night we were coming back because it just turned dark, and we're walking back down the trail, and Paul said, "Did you know you have a Bigfoot walking next to you?" I didn't know. And I turned and looked, sure enough, it's walking right beside me with its eyeshine on. Mm-hmm. And it's probably about 5 or 6 feet to the side. It wasn't that far. Mm-hmm. And it was paralleling us, and I never heard it. And it had its eyeshine on. It was white and everything. So the first night, I was like, well, Sarah's not kidding about this place. So we go back there, and, you know, now too, we got to go get now that, you know, I'm healing. I've been healing from surgery, as you guys know, but I'm finally getting better. So Paul and I have that on the list to go back and do some more night walking there. And then I accidentally found another place that I call Hootie's Place. I was driving down the road a few years ago, and in fact, it's the year anniversary of that too. I saw my memories. It's kind of funny that we're on the podcast on my year anniversary of all this. Right. But yeah, I was driving down the road, and I was going to go somewhere else. And all of a sudden I had turned, and I was down this other road. I didn't even really remember turning, but I knew I had turned. And I was like, why the heck did I do that? Why the heck did I turn down this road? And so I was like, well, okay, I'll just go with it and see what's at the end of the road. And so I'd never been down the street. And it was 120 acres of wooded park that nobody really uses ever, and except in the fall when they have a festival. And so, and I remember because I brought Jonathan out there too, and they had the street lights on at night, and he's like, why do they even have the lights on here? Because there's nobody ever there. And you know, so but the first day I got there, I walked into an area of the woods just in the middle of the day, and owls started going off in a circle all around me. And I knew that was them because it was the middle of the day, and maybe I hear an owl once in a blue moon in the day, maybe if it's an owl. And but this was a whole bunch of them in a circle around me, and they were doing the barred owl calls. Mm-hmm. And so that I hadn't named it Hootie's Place yet then, but I went back soon after I found it. Jonathan came to visit, and we went there, and he picked a trail for us to go on. And we went down it, and as soon as we stepped on the trail, I saw these bright green bushes to the left, and a thought came to my mind that it should be a good place for the biggies to hide behind. And I listened to my thought, and I didn't take my eyes off the green bushes. And so we're walking down the trail, and I'm real quiet, just watching the bright green bushes. And Jonathan turns around and says, those bushes are really bright green, aren't they? And I said, yeah, but I'm thinking it should be a good place for the biggies to hide behind. And so he stops, and he picks up a big stick, and he does 3 tree knots. And there was a long silence, and I really felt like they were there. And I said, biggies, out loud, like, and I said in my head first, because I knew they can read my mind. And I said, you know, it's rude not to answer back. And then I said, real loud, biggies. And then they started doing this chatter talk to Jonathan and I. And Jonathan told me that's what it's called, is chatter talk. And it's hard to explain the sound. It's real fast. They used to do it in my yard all the time, so I recognized it when I heard it. And when it was in my yard, it's like it's a bunch of bugs or something. It's real fast. I don't know how to explain it.
It's called monkey chatter.
Monkey chatter. Okay.
And that's it. Gets to it crescendos, goes higher and higher and higher and higher, and then gets into that almost that monkey sound. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yes. I think that's it. Johnson's probably, if he's there, but that sounds like it to me, because he said the monkey chatter sounds similar. Yes. So that's what we heard. And then I came back another night, and I was just I was looking for fairies, and I heard a barred owl, and I did a barred owl call back to it. Sam taught me how. And and it called back to me, which barred owls usually do. And I made another one, and it didn't make a call back. And I thought, that's strange. And so I'm just down the dirt road, kind of dancing and looking for fairies, enjoying my night. It's pitch dark out, and I hear the footsteps coming, thump, 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 you know, through the woods real loud. And I knew what the footsteps were from my yard. I knew that sound. And I turn around expecting to see some bright eyeshine. And instead I go, oh, really loud, right in front of my face. And and it's pitch dark, and I was by myself, and it scared me. As I said, once it's women, they get me. And I took off running. Of course, it didn't scare. I mean, it didn't hurt me at all. It was just my reaction. And I took off running, and then I thought, Ginger, stop running. The biggie's not chasing you. So I stopped and calmed myself down and started walking towards the car, because I thought, okay, if I can't handle this, I need to leave, but do it calmly. And so I get to the car, and I'm standing there trying to hold my ground a little, because now I feel a little safer. I'm right next to my car. And and here I hear it again, coming, walking right up to me, boom, boom, boom. And it was walking right up to the car. And I just had already got fear in me, so I knew I couldn't handle it. And I just said, thank you for allowing me here. And I got in my car and left. But most of the time I can handle it, but it was the surprise factor. I didn't expect that. So that place has well earned its name as Hootie's Place.
That's funny. When you said that, it totally reminded me of, we were camping at a place here. It was fall 2019, I think. And it was like our last camping trip of the season before the snow came. And it was a place that we had been to a couple of times. And every time we're there, something happens. And this time it was relatively quiet, but I woke up at sometime in the middle of the night, 2 or 3 in the morning. And I heard something that sounded just like what you were saying right there. It was like somebody was in the woods, and it was almost like they were mad that they had to make an owl call, if that makes sense. And they were like, and so they didn't put any effort into trying to make it sound like an owl. They were just like, whoo, whoo. And I was like, that was pathetic, man.
I had that afterwards. I came back because I wanted to make sure I passed a test, and that was a test. And so I went down the trail that Jonathan and I had went and heard the chatter talk, or monkey talk, like you said. And I went there about to the same spot, and here I hear one come walking right up, and it hooted at me, but this time it wasn't near as strong, and there wasn't near as much energy put out behind it. And it spooked me a little, but I stood there and took it, and then I walked closer to my car, about 6 feet down the trail. And then I stayed on the trail because I was determined to pass this test, if it was one.
Yeah.
So then it comes walking 6 feet closer to me and does it again. But this time it was really weak. It was like, ooh. And I was like, okay, are you done now?
Oh my gosh.
And they haven't done it to me since there.
Yeah.
Ginger, what was your first structure that you found?
Ground sticks. That's why they're one of my favorite things to find, because they have a lot of meaning to me. we were going down one of the trails one night, and because we had no idea they did that. We would have just thought it was falling sticks or something. You know, and all of a sudden in the middle of the trail, there was these two sticks smack in the middle of the trail, standing up. And I knew they had cleared the trail and there wasn't any trees or anything left behind. And I said something to Paul, and I said, what are these two sticks doing in the middle of the trail? And he goes, oh, I don't know. We just thought, okay, maybe we just don't remember. So the next night we go back out down the trail, and the sticks grew taller overnight. And I recognized that and said something to Paul. And then, so the next night we go down it again, and they're even taller. Now I'm grabbing them with my hands on both sides and swinging in between them, like swinging in between trees, because they weren't sticks anymore. They were like two trees stuck in the ground now. So, and they were in the exact same place. You know, so I realized they jam sticks in the ground, and if you pull them up, you'll see there's no roots or anything. And I find them everywhere, all over the woods, especially near the pinned arches. There seems to always be a ground stick somewhere around a pinned arch. I don't know why, but it goes down into the ground. You pull it up, there's no roots. And, you know, I have thrown sticks at the ground. I cannot get them to go in the ground the tiniest bit. You know, we're hard red clay here. I don't know how they do that without breaking the stick.
Right.
But that was the first one I had seen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I knew about it. And then I'd seen another structure on the corner of our house, but it didn't have just a regular design. It had like some X's in it and was arched over. And a lot of things came from that area. So I always wondered if it was a opening to a portal area or something. And then on one side of our yard, a bunch of X's were formed. And it was exactly on the boundary of our yard. So I felt like they were definitely marking it and saying they were welcome there, because we used to tell them they could run over in our yard all the time. They used to pass by one of our neighbors 2 doors down, and he put a pit bull right up against the wood line. And I kind of felt like he did that because he heard something. And the biggies used to cross by there a lot, and they used to bang on the fence, and the pit bull would shut up, and the guy would come out with this huge infrared light. And when he did, I would always yell, come on, biggies, come over here. And, you know, tell them to come get in my yard to be safe. And no, I wasn't attached, but I felt like the X's were letting others know that it was a safe place to be.
I was just looking in the chat, and Donnell said about Hootie. She said, you told him it was rude not to respond, and he did.
That's right. Exactly right.
He was definitely making himself known.
Yes, Donnell.
He said, you want a response? Here you go.
That's right. Yeah. Which proves again, they can hear what's in my mind, because I said that in my mind.
Yeah. And they can honor that or not honor that.
And they do that.
Right.
Yeah. But, you know, so at any given time, you can not get something, or,
right.
you know, you can get something. But the thing is, where is your thought pattern at that time? You know, you were in the moment with them. You were being honest. You weren't chastising them or anything else. You were just saying how you felt about it.
Yeah.
And they accepted that. And so, you know, it's not about actually getting onto them, but sharing your perspective of how you think, which they already know anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, that's just that's just that thing. Be honest and open. They already know anyway. So if you're not, you know, being
there
truthful,
is no reason
they already
to lie,
know
because they know.
Yes,
They know. I mean, you might as well tell them everything on your mind, because they know anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
100%. 100%.
I saw how Bill was talking about the golf balls and stuff, you know, last time. And I told him that I think he had one from Michigan follow him there. to your house. And
Well,
you
the
know,
interesting thing is, I had friends here recently. We're working on the place, and Bill and Lori Taylor came, and Lori had told me a story about where they're at and the golf course and all this other stuff. And then a little bit later, she had said, was talking about wanting to see them or to connect with them. So we all took off to the woods. I was just showing them some of the places where I helped pick campsites, and I just wanted them to see some of the land. And we're not taking any particular path. There is no actual path. We're just here, there, and when I'm in the woods, I just kind of go where I feel led to go. And we walk over there, and there's a golf ball, and we're like, oh my gosh, you were just talking about that. Now, you can't hit golf balls into the woods. Number one, it'd never make it very far into the woods because of all the trees, and you sure
Right.
can't hit it when you're already in the woods, and there wouldn't be anybody here doing that anyway. So it was like, okay, they're just letting you know they're connecting with you. Well, knowing Lori and how she is about such a kind heart, and thinking, well, I got one, Bill doesn't have one. Well, we were coming around and coming back up a different way. I'd changed my mind, and there was another golf ball. So they both got golf balls.
I love it.
Well, the funny thing, and I haven't told him either, is we were down taking some things into the woods, at the edge of the woods, and Matthew looks over there and he said, is that a golf ball? We found a golf ball.
I love it. That's funny.
It's just and that's that connection that gets made. They know what you're feeling, what you're saying, and where your heart's at, and your mind, and everything. They're very good to connect. So
I remember when we were in Washington, and Gail would pull over and take pictures of that mountain. Was it Mount Adams, or was it Mount? Yeah, I think it was Mount Adams. And you saw the prints, and Jonathan did.
Yes.
And there were two different sets.
Yeah.
Right there in the snow, right when we pulled over. Right before we pulled over, I had whispered, Peanut, I'm in Washington now. And Jonathan said, what'd you just whisper? And I said, nothing. And we pulled over, and y'all saw prints. So I started looking around, and there was a peanut shell nearby. Remember that? A worn peanut shell.
Yeah.
So it's like you said, they hear your thoughts with the golf balls.
They do. They do. And they love to see us in that frame of mind, that joy, and that enjoying, and just looking at life as this thing that we're blessed with. So, Sam, don't you have some pictures of structures?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to screen share. This is my first time, so I'm gonna pop my cherry real quick. All right. Let's see. You guys let me know. Is it working?
All right. There they are.
There it is. Yep.
Awesome.
All right. So Ginger, you're gonna have to give us a backstory on these.
Okay, that's at Hootie's place. I was wandering through the woods one day looking for structures and just getting some exercise. It does both. But and I came across that one, and I did a video on it actually to see where all the sticks are coming from, or broke trees. Because those are actually broke trees. That's pretty big. You can see the broke tree right in the front bent over in it. And I couldn't find where one of the trees came from at all. But so that's one at Hootie's place. Hootie's place has a ton of structures. I had seen asterisks in our yard before, but only real tiny ones. And I think the first big one I saw was at the place we camped, and then found on Hootie's. I love the asterisks.
Yeah.
They're awesome.
Is this a vine in the middle? It's kind of wrapped around it.
It's not wrapped around those. There's a vine growing in it, but it's not holding them together.
Okay.
It's just the trees are just strategically placed and they're holding themselves.
All right, we'll look at the next one.
Okay, that's after one of the encounters I talked about at Hootie's place. The night I got hooted at and scared and went running. I went back the next morning because I knew I had encounters. So I thought, well, let me go see if I'm finding evidence of it. And that's right where the Bigfoot was that hooted at me. That glyph was left there the next morning. And you can tell it was recent because those are tiny, tiny little twigs. See the pine straws, not much smaller than the twigs are, but they're long, but they're thin. A squirrel or wind or anything could have picked those up and moved them. So it was just done that morning.
Right.
And there's a little broke piece off to the side. And I keep thinking about that and thought about it, wondering if a squirrel did that, but I really think that was on purpose.
This part right here?
Yeah, that broke. Now I have 2 other glyphs, or 3 of them, that are squares, and a lot of people get the square glyphs, but this was interesting because it also has the sides 2 extra grids on the side there.
Yeah, I see this glyph, like the tic-tac-toe glyph. I've seen it in several places, and I've seen other people's photos of this. It's almost like it's a balance point to me when I look at it. And then, you know, when you run the lines of it, you know, you begin to see a balance in that, or I do. I'm not going to tell other people that's what they've got to see, but in the instances that I have personally seen it used, it was about balance.
It could very well be. And I was trying to heal from a lot of bad things that happened to me at the time. And balance was definitely something I needed. So
yeah, balance and harmony, things that work together, things that fit together.
I felt like the broke part was talking about a broken part of me.
Yeah, and sometimes, I don't know if like this one in particular, but sometimes there's like an energy in the glyph itself that's meant for you.
Yes, I agree.
You'll pick up something that somebody else won't pick up out of it.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
I thought that was neat for evidence to be left after the encounter. I didn't know I'd find it. It's like, sure enough, look at this. Okay, this is at our place where I met you guys at camping. And I really like this because it's interwoven. Which stick do you think went down first?
Yep, that's it. That's the key. Oh, so now it didn't fall like that.
No, there's no way.
Which is really cool.
Yeah,
I love the interwoven ones.
There's like pine cones too at each junction, like each.
I hadn't noticed that before, Sam. Good catch. It's got little sticks sticking up to hold things in place too.
We'll come back to these.
Okay.
All right.
And that's down the street from your place, Sam. There's a little camping, old camping place. It's right down the street from your research area.
Okay.
And I hopped in the woods there one day to see what was up, and that huge asterisk was there.
Yeah, there's something back here too.
Yeah, and there's actually the X over to the right.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and this goes through it. That goes
That's
through
a big one.
This this looks just like another one that I saw in the place down the road from this.
Yeah, I mean, it's just barely down the road from your place.
Yeah.
So.
This looks very familiar.
That's at the same spot.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, as the crow flies, how far is this from Hootie's place?
It's probably in the car, it's probably about 40 minutes.
Okay. It's on the
But
other side of the interstate?
on the other side, yeah. And now it has power lines by it though,
Yeah. Yep.
just like your place does.
Yep.
We noticed all of our places have power lines running through it.
Yep.
Now the teepee, the first place I'd ever seen one of those was actually in my neighbor's backyard. So that's how I knew about those. There was all these trees laying down, and we didn't know if our neighbors did it. And Paul asked him one day, and they said no. And it didn't look normal because they were all laying down together. You know, trees don't usually all fall in one clump like you would if you were stashing logs or something.
Mhm.
And then one day I went out there, and they were all standing up in a teepee. And our neighbors were very elderly, never went in the woods. So that's how I learned about the teepees. It's funny when you see trees stand up all of a sudden.
Yeah, I know. I used to, before I really picked up on what was going on, I would drive by this one place on my way home from work. And one day I remember looking over and all the trees, and they were like these pines that you see right here. All of them in the very front row were X'd. Like they weren't broken, but they were pushed across each other like X's, and there was like a row of X's. And I remember being, I didn't see that yesterday. That's weird. And that was before I really even knew what was going on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's funny, Ginger. I wanted to talk to you or just run this by you. When I first started going to this place, and I started having my encounters, I was working at this place with a bunch of guys. I'm an automotive technician for people that don't know. So I was working at a shop, and I was trying to tell them, like, without being totally open about it, without getting, joked out of the shop about what was going on, and they weren't really getting it or whatever. Well, that was in like 2012, 2013. 2 years ago, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, one of the guys that worked at that shop, he was staying with his in-laws, and he told me the area, and I was like, oh, that's cool. That's right down the street from my friend Ginger. Like 5 minutes down the street from Ginger. And he called me a few months later, and he was like, yo, I got to tell you something. And I was like, what? He was like, I was on my back deck smoking a cigarette one night. It was like 1 or 2 in the morning. And he was like, and nobody else was awake. I was just sitting out there smoking a cigarette. It was super quiet. And he was like, and all of a sudden somebody walked up through the woods right up to the edge of the tree line and started breathing heavy at me. And he was like, I had no idea. He was like, I thought that you were just crazy. And I was like, I told you, man. I told you. Like, and it's not far from this area. And I was like, I told you, man. Like, they're all over that place. But I just thought it was funny. It was kind of like it was very gratifying for me.
We used to have the most sightings in Georgia, our county, on the BFRO site. I don't know what it is now, but at the time when all that was going on, we had the most sightings. Of course, a lot of sightings don't make it to that, so it's not accurate. Right. But the sightings that were there were mostly all around our house. One was down the street this way, and one was a few streets over the other way, and they were all right around here. Yeah.
It's a very active area for sure. And and that's what people should understand. It's not that rural. It's suburbs. And it's connected with little strips of woods,
Yeah. Just tiny little strips of woods.
Yeah. I think these are some of the ones that I have from that area. This is from the area that you started going to, that used to be my spot.
Yeah,
that's nice. This was the very first structure I ever saw that I was like, that's not normal. And this was right by a trail too. So like they they put these, they put them there for us to notice them. It's not like they just
Yeah. I remember we had 2 big arches formed too in the yard. And I remember showing Arla a picture of it and Gail early on. This one was so perfect. I mean, you couldn't not notice it, but that is how I learned about the structures. And nobody was going in our backyard except for the Bigfoot and Paul and I.
Right. Yeah, so this is another one from that area where it's like these two giant, or this was one tree that was broken in half.
Nice one.
Yeah, and all this in the middle are vines that are wrapped
I
around it
see that.
to hold it
Holding
up.
it up.
And then this corner right here is held up. That's the middle. Is held up and wedged between these two trees. And then there's more vines like wrapped around it, like in a figure eight to hold this corner up.
Love it.
Yeah, so they and this wasn't a small structure. This was, when I was standing, I was about right here. That was about where my head was. So
Oh,
like,
wow.
you know,
Was that
not
towards the back of the place or what?
that was in the very back area.
Okay.
For anyone that knows my story about being surrounded by three of them, it was right back here is where that happened. So, all right, we'll do that. So shall we talk about fairies?
Sure.
All right. I have no personal experience with fairies that I know of. So this is totally you guys. I'll just be a
Arla
witness.
probably knows more about fairies than me. All I know is what I've experienced. But my first fairy encounters was when I was young. I would take off on my bike every day I could and ride through the woods as much as possible. We lived in Florida, but we lived in a very woodsy area, more rural than where I live now. It was very country and woodsy, and everybody owned at least 2 acres or more. And most people just left woods up in their acres. And I would ride my bike down all the trails and dirt roads. And I got tired one day and sat down in front of this big, huge tree and was just relaxing, and it had a huge hole in the tree. And all of a sudden I saw something run inside the hole in the tree. And it was about maybe 2 feet tall, and it was an all green, had on a green hat, and it had green clothing. And I was probably around 10 when this happened. So I wasn't like some real little kid, you know, I was getting up to my teenage years. And I saw that, and then as soon as I saw that, then all of a sudden I saw these fairies flying around the tree, and it was in the middle of the day. And they were just kind of see-through with iridescent color in them. And then I used to come back all the time after that, you know, watching for the fairies and the little person that ran inside the tree. And I even did a drawing of it at home, and I have it in a scrapbook somewhere. I'll have to find that. But that reminded me of it. And I used to think the fairies were telling me things, and I used to talk to them and, you know, listen for thoughts back. And because even on my drawing, I have a little sign that says go this way, because I used to think they're pointing a direction for me to go to. So I guess I had some experience with talking to other beings when I was young already. So when the Bigfoot came in my yard, it was kind of, I guess, natural for me, like Carla said. And then later, when I was around 18 or 17, when I could drive, I used to park around that area down the road and at night and roll down my windows. And that's when I would hear the really loud footsteps come walking up to the car on both sides of the car. And it was dark. So once again, I could only see the silhouettes of them, and they did not use eyeshine. And I didn't know eyeshine. I probably would have thought it was a flashlight or something if I'd seen it. But I thought it was walking bears, because, you know, when you're a kid, you truly believe things, and you're so much more magical and open to it without doubt. I remember I used to sit on these, I was thinking about this today. I used to sit on these big, huge dirt piles, and there would be a bunch of ants all in them at the top. And I used to sit in the middle of them and believe I was queen of the ants, and that the ants wouldn't hurt me or bite me. And because I believed that, they never did. And they would just walk all around me, and they never touched my body. And I was sitting right in the middle of the ant pile, and they never bit me. And I would do it time after time. And I thought the ants were my buddies and all the animals. So when these started coming up to me, I thought it was just the bear buddies. Like the bears were my buddies too. Mm-hmm. And and it would happen every time I went out there. And I finally told one of my friends in high school about it, and she didn't believe me. And I told her I had bears walking up to me at night. So she did take me. So I took her out there one night, and we rolled down the windows. Sure enough, they come walking up on both sides, and it scared her to death. And she got real mad at me and wanted to go home. So that ended that. But and then when the Bigfoot came to our yard years ago, 7 years ago, the fairies came too. I didn't notice them right at first. They may have been here, but I don't remember. There used to be all these little green lights in the woods, and they used to sit in the hedges and all, because it used to be woodsy in our yard. They cleared it out a lot. And I remember seeing all the little green lights, and I used to think it was juvenile eyeshine, because I just didn't have any more knowledge than that. And I thought, well, they sure are close together. Those must be really teeny biggies or something. And then one night I was sitting on the porch with Paul and his father, and we were looking for the porch. We were on the porch looking for eyeshine outside, because his father had seen eyeshine in our yard, and it made him start believing in the Bigfoot. And it was wonderful. He was an elderly man, and he really didn't have anything going on in his life. And it thrilled him to death to sit on the porch every night and watch for eyeshine. He just loved it. It was like, the Bigfoot are great at gifting people with wonderful things like that. And so one night we were out there watching, I saw the little green lights, and I saw them start rising up. They were on the ground. I saw them start rising up, and I said, hi. And they come flying up to the porch, and they started doing spirals, like in a shell. It was a spiral, and they didn't turn off their light, and they were dancing in spirals. And it's just like you've heard on some of the songs and stuff. They really danced in spirals. And then they started flying away, and Paul said, oh, they're leaving. And so I said, hi. And they came back, and this time they were doing zigzags, and they left the green light on the whole time. They weren't turning it off. And this time it was like little lightning bolts horizontal in front of us. And they were really showing off. And I kept saying to Paul and his father, don't you guys think this is unusual? Because nobody was saying anything. And I think we were all just trying to make sense of what the heck are we seeing. And but it was obvious, very clear, that we completely understood the word hi, because that's all it took for them to fly up and start dancing in front of us. And I knew those weren't fireflies, because fireflies don't respond to the word hi, and they turn the lights off eventually. Plus the light was a little bit smaller than a firefly, and the fireflies are more yellow. But that's how I learned about the fairies. And then we'd see them in the woods night after night. And then something started happening where I would say, rain on me. And it felt like things were dropping out of the trees in the sky all over me in the backyard. And I called it rain because it felt cold, but not really wet. But the closest thing that can remind me of is rain, or like crushed leaves. And then I actually know someone that said the same thing happened to her, but she said she saw it was crystals. And now she said that it felt just like little crystals hitting. And I remember asking about that to Arla and saying, was that the fairies? And she knew of a prophecy of that. And it used to happen to me all the time. I'd be walking through a wood and say, rain on me. And I'd feel them all fall down upon me. It was magical feeling. So the yard was just completely magical then. Do you remember that, what you told me about, Arla?
Yes, that is what was in one of the messages that Sanat Kumara had given me. He's an ascended master back in 2009. And it talks about, as we get to that space of knowing and understanding, that these things began to happen. And in one of those messages it was like crystals being dropped all around us. And it's interesting, because I was told at the time I was given those messages that they would make more sense at a later time. And that's exactly, how it's been, because people have come and said things, and I'm like, well, that was in, what Sanat Kumara had talked with me about. So yeah, that's just pretty cool stuff. And that's kind of one of the feelings I get when the fairies are very active, is it's like this light, this little crystal light is kind of falling down all around you. And that's basically that the green lights, they were all around and, doing the spiral. No, fireflies don't do the spiral that I've ever seen in my life, but the fairies very much do that. And with them, knowing about them, for all of my life. And it just is like, that's just how it is. It's just a fact of my life. It's normal. And it's kind of funny because the people who are connected to me, Matthew, for one, which he believes in them too, but seeing the evidence of this happening, one of the things that they did when we were in the fifth wheel, I had, Matthew has an old, what they call the washstand, and we had it over against the wall right by where the steps are, where you would step up to go in the bedroom. And I had special things on there, not really an altar, but a lot of special stones and other things. And we had Mona, her ashes, Matthew's dog that he had on the truck with him for 19 years. And the funny thing I got to noticing, what I would catch glimpses of them running down the steps right there by that. Well, I had this long draped shawl over the whole thing, and I kept seeing them come running through that area by there. And I looked, and that corner of the shawl was being pulled out from under the things that were sitting on it. The things that were sitting on it weren't moving, but the shawl right there, they were coming through and grabbing the shawl and catapulting themselves like kids would run and grab something, was being pulled way down. And I think I've got pictures of that somewhere. So there's evidence all around you that they're there if you have eyes to see. And that's one of the things Sanat Kumara talks about too: ears that hear and, eyes that see. And that's not like you just see things, but you see past what your eyes can see.
Yeah.
And being here now, back in the home that I lived in for so many years and had so many things happen, and having Amy Faye, the Bull Mastiff puppy that I have now, the fairies have just messed with her uncontrollable. It is the funniest thing to watch. Amy Faye was standing here in the living room area the other day, and I caught the glimpse of something. And then I looked, and Amy Faye's literally reared up, kicked her back feet, tucked her butt under, and they're messing with her. They're plinking her right by her tail. And it is the fun, and she turns around and watches them, and you can see her watch them as they move. And it's just the most hilarious thing to watch, because they are such fun and, such stinkers. I've got an audio that I've shared with a few people, and no, I'm not going to share it publicly because I don't do all of my audio to share publicly. But there are many that have heard it, and I was out videoing, and they were out and around doing things, and I was trying to video this young hawk that had hatched there in a nest by the cabin. And it's just a very short video. And at the beginning of it, you hear this, "Look up at me." And I'm like, "Look up at me." And I'm like, "That's a fairy said that. Okay, now where are you?" And I think I posted it and I said, "Okay, guys, what do you think, is being said?"
I remember
And,
that one.
yeah, of course, I knew, what had been being said. And then I had someone that does the audio and stuff, does the spectrograms, and it fell into the area that you would hear from birds and little things that fly. So even the spectrogram said, okay, this is something that falls in this range. The same as the big guys have a range that's been attached to them, and other animals and things that, are out there, even us. But yeah, they're out there, and Ginger and I've talked a lot about them. But it's like when you truly open up and want to know more from your heart, things start coming. It's like I always say, when that happens and you start to reach that point, it's like you send an RSVP out to the universe, and all kinds of things start coming and want to talk, or you can see them, or whatever. So it's a cool thing. And as we're getting into this, we're finding so many other people who are having this interaction too. And you talk to a lot of people, Ginger, and when you share, you find other people.
Yes.
I'm not the only one. Right. No one is the only one having experiences. You can just about bet there's a lot of other people that are doing it. And, that's one of the things we hope to help with the show, is to help bring all this stuff to people. I know anytime I've ever talked about something, someone would come later and said, "Well, I wondered what I was seeing. I really wasn't for sure, but I believe that's what I was seeing." So, that's a really cool thing to hear from somebody.
A lot of people just need someone to talk to, and they don't know who they can talk to about it and stuff, because I know when I mentioned the fairies and even the Bigfoot, and I was in a class before this, and I was saying I was going to drop out early to get ready for this interview. And they started talking to me about the fairies, wanting to know about the fairies, and said there are lots of questions about them and all this. So it's like, you're right. It's like people just don't know who to talk to about it.
Yeah.
Right. Totally. Yeah. The guys at the cabin that I go to, the cabin I go to, the guys that go with me, usually they're all ex-military, and they're older. And they're all like retired military guys. So they're some tough eggs to crack, and they've all experienced things, but it's really hard to get them to talk about it unless I'm alone with them. Well, if they're in if it's a group of us, they're like, no,
Right.
But one-on-one, you can pry it out. Yeah, one-on-one, you can pry it out. You'll be like, "What'd you see? It was weird." You're like, "Well, there was this one time,
I brought somebody out to me before, a couple people, and they got a little freaked out because they really didn't know that the fairies were real. And I remember one person, they went and we went out there with chairs. I called my fairy hill. And we went and sat in front of the fairy hill waiting for the fairies, and they came down, and the little tiny ones are super intelligent. And they went and sat all around his chair and just stayed with their little white light lighting up. And it's it blows people's minds when they see it being real the first time. And I think people seem to have a harder time with it than the Bigfoot, even though this one tells the fairies forever going on. But Paul and I had an experience that one time where we all camp, and that's where my fairy hill is too. And it was the first time I'd seen him there or noticed him. Actually, no, I noticed him down that one trail, bunch of lights. But this one night, we saw a big white light coming down the hill, and I thought it was Bigfoot eyeshine. And it was a big white light, and the fireflies weren't out or anything. And Paul and I are like, what is that? And then Paul said, where's the other eye? And because we thought it was Bigfoot eyeshine too. And I kept looking, and it's like, where is the other eye? I don't. So then I was getting scared because I didn't know what it was. And I calmed myself down because I know to calm myself, you know, so I don't get in that frenzy. And then it went over to this tree, and there was a hole in the tree. And it went over to the hole, and it met up with another one. And the other one turned its light on, and it came out of the hole and flew over my head. And it was just inches above my head. And when it flew over, I looked up and I saw wings on it. And it was this ball of white light with wings. And that was my first big experience with fairies at that place. And ever since, I've been coming back for fairies there. I'm dying for Beltane to come for the fairies to march, because that's when I always have the best encounters.
Well, here, let me share these pictures that you sent me.
Okay.
Because these pictures are really cool. Let me.
So fairies do go in holes in the trees. That's for sure.
Yes, they do.
Mm-hmm.
They go where they go.
Mm-hmm. And I know for sure that they like shiny things and sweets and flowers and herbs, because I've gifted them those. And I'll go out to my fairy hill and sit them down and say, I brought some gifts for you, and zoom, they'll fly right above the cupcakes, the flower petals, whatever, and the sage, and they're flying all around it and all over it, looking at it, and then they fly away. As soon as I say something, so they completely understand every word you say.
Mm-hmm. All right, can you see this?
Yeah, that's a red one. They are in different colors. Mainly I see white ones, but sometimes I see other colors too. They come in different colors, different shapes, and different sizes. So don't think your fairies have to look like that.
Yeah, this next picture is really cool.
Yeah, these are actually screenshots from the videos, because they're always flying around. And so I have to screenshot them in the video, but that's a screenshot.
Yeah, I love this one. This one's really
I like
cool.
his arms, her arms up in the air. It looks like she has a little skirt with 2 legs sticking out.
Yeah, it does. All right. Yeah, I just wanted to share those real quick because I thought those were super cool.
Yeah, I was happy to get some fairy pictures. Usually it just looked like little white orbs or something. So it was neat when those 2 came out like that.
Yeah.
I like to sit in the woods and talk to the fairies. One time I was camping out there alone a lot, night after night, and the fairies were there every night for me. They were they'd be up in the trees around me. And then one night I came out there, and there was a ring of them. You know how you always hear fairy rings? It's so funny when I hear these things from fairy tales and songs come true in real life. And there was a fairy ring. So I went and sat in the middle of it and sang to the fairies and talked to them. And so they're family to me now, because they're always there for me when I need them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I've said this before, but like if you want interactions in the woods, or you want to connect with beings and entities or anything, just look and like pay attention to Ginger, like how she acts, like how she talks, like her energy, everything. It's just like, and when you're next to Ginger, when you're in a room with Ginger, like you really understand, because her energy like affects everybody. It's like contagious. So when she's out in the woods, like it's just a whole other level. So yeah, if you want to interact or have some kind of things happen, just watch this video, watch Ginger. because just,
Have fun.
yeah,
Have
I
fun.
like the magic
That's,
to happen.
yeah,
I mean, you
that's,
just on a magical day.
yeah,
yeah,
and it's true. Just because spirit is like your inner child. That's how spirit
Mhm.
is. We don't that doesn't have the baggage of physical existence. It's very lighthearted, it's very happy, and it's just heartful and loving. So go out into the woods and just be that,
Yes,
and it just changes everything, man. It's just,
yes.
yeah.
Just sing or whatever you got to do to raise your vibration and get in a good mood,
Mhm.
and just let your mind have fun.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
That reminds me of, hearing different researchers say, well, they seem to like children.
Mhm.
Well, the reason they like children is because children have fun. When they're out in the woods, they're playing and laughing. You get a bunch of adults together playing and laughing and enjoying themselves and enjoying each other, which is pretty much what our gatherings were
Yes.
really
Yep.
about.
Mhm.
Things are going to happen. They
Yeah.
love to see us enjoy ourselves.
Yes.
Let go of everything else and just, enjoy themselves. Like you, I sing. I love Celine Dion. I can't sing her worth a darn,
Me
but
neither.
I do it.
Mhm.
I've got giggled at doing different things, in the woods. But it's all about being in that space of
Yes.
peace, and peace is happiness.
Mhm.
And when you can get through that and share that energy with everybody, then things are going to happen. It's inevitable for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So just sing and dance and look like a fool and have a good time, because that's when the magic happens.
Yeah,
It is.
lose your ego. Put your ego,
Yeah.
leave it in the
Yep.
car.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens when you do that. Ego does not exist.
Mhm.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
Yeah, because I just go and walk around in the woods and talk to myself. I just talk out loud and I make fun of
Yeah.
myself. I laugh at myself, because it just lightens up the mood, and that's what they want. That's what they respond to, And also,
Yeah.
like to me, also walking around and looking at structures, and being very like enthusiastic and just like appreciative of the structures, and like they really respond well to that too. So it's just
Absolutely. I think that's one reason I was starting to find so many at Hootie's place. I was going there so often looking and saying stuff out loud, like, wow, you guys, this is really beautiful. And then more and more starting to be built, and more and more and more.
Yep.
And now I have hundreds of pictures from there.
Yep. Yeah.
We are
100%.
so easy to please.
Yeah.
I mean, just the least. I mean, golf balls. Excuse me. So
Yeah.
there's,
A peanut.
it just amazes me that it takes so little
Mhm.
to please us.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially a heart-shaped stone. Oh, heart-shaped rock.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. Well, going back to what you were saying about seeing, seeing with not seeing with your eyes, or what was it that he said?
You see people who see, and it's more than see as we see when we're
Right.
just looking at something. It is past that, is when that heart opens, that we truly begin to see. And now science has even picked up on that connection between the heart and the eyes. And one of the things that Sanat Kumara had said is some people's ears are busy.
Yeah.
They don't hear.
Mhm.
And when you don't have busy ears, you hear things.
Yep.
And so it's just getting to that spot of being open past what we know as this physical world, that most people talk about, but thankfully more and more and more people are connecting with that world that's so much more than what man's been told it is. And, you know, that's part of what Snot was talking about, was that we need to open our ears through our heart, open our eyes through our heart, our senses, our feelings, things that are going on that comes through the heart. And then, you know, that dispels fear too.
Yeah.
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 Oh yeah.
And, you know, that feeling that you can get, that bliss or love. And Sanat Kumara even talked about that, was that feeling, that bliss that you get into, where nothing in the world matters except in that moment you have totally connected in. And it's, I can't explain it. I there are no words
Yeah,
for
you
me
can't.
to totally explain
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
it is. You
Yeah.
gotta feel it.
Oh
You
yeah.
gotta feel it.
I live for that moment.
Yes.
Me
Yes.
too.
That next moment of when that happens.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I've told you this story, Arla, but after our after the conference in Georgia, the October 2019, I think it was October, wasn't it? The 2019 conference.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Well, I came back home to here in Oregon, and I was just like, I didn't feel connected. I don't know what was going on with me. Like I came back and it was a couple weeks, and I just felt out of touch with everything, and it was something going on, like some kind of blockage or something. And I went up to one of my spots, and I sat. I brought a chair and my drum. I drummed for a while, opened myself up. I sat down, and I, you know, had sage going all around me, and I was just taking it all in, and I was force bathing. And I sat there and I meditated for probably 30 minutes, just totally quiet, just sat there and listened to the wind. And I was, you know, feeling the trees and everything around me. And I asked, I'm gonna close my eyes because it just makes it more authentic to me. But I asked, and I was like, what's going on with me? Like, why am I not feeling right, like myself? And I heard, you are too loud to see. And when I heard that, you know, I instantly knew what it meant. And I opened my eyes, and when I opened my eyes, right maybe 20 feet in front of me was there was tree branches that were like this, and the wind was kind of blowing. And between me and the tree branches was a wolf's head. But it was kind of see-through, but I could see it. And he was just looking at me. And then he like kind of went back and disappeared into the trees. But just that saying, you're too loud to see, I was like, when you say that about Sanat Kumara, I was like, that's it. I know exactly. Yeah.
Yep. And at some point, we'll start talking about on the show some of the things that Sanat Kumara brought, and how I see it now, and you know how you're going to see it, how our audience is going to see this, because I know any message that we're given through the universe, however it comes to us, in this case through Sanat Kumara, it's multi-layered.
Yeah.
You know, it's multi-layered. It's like it was tailored just for me, or just for you,
Mhm.
or just someone else. It's going to have that in there to it. And I love that when the universe does that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're running up on 2 hours now. Do you want to talk about some more things, or
Has anybody got any questions for me?
there's a lot of chat? No real questions, but there's a lot of love in the
Hey,
chat right now.
That's
everyone. Love
awesome.
you.
That's awesome. Yep.
Well, why don't we call this one a show, and then we'll have you on for part 2 sometime.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks, you guys. It was good seeing you. You're my family.
Yeah,
Love
seeing
you.
you too. Love you.
Love you too.
All right.
Look
Love you guys.
forward to seeing you.
Uh-huh. I'll see you soon.
Yeah. All right. Good night, everybody. Love you guys.
Good night. Thank
Bye.
you guys for coming.